works?
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
don't have to.
Alright, Rose is here, so I guess we'll make a start. Okay. Alright, so hello, welcome to Bana Chronomancer training. We're gonna go over how to play Chrono today. So I'm gonna go through some basic introduction first, and then we'll talk about gear and trait lines, followed up by skills, and then we'll talk a little bit about the combos you can do as a Chronomancer, and then finally we will go through some gameplay footage. At any point, if there's any questions, just ask on Discord or type it in chat, and we can sort of answer them as along the way. Okay? So, as a Chronomancer in Warfare World, you have four main roles that you need to fulfill, okay? Because you're providing utility to the squad. So the four things that you're looking to do is firstly stripping enemy boons, secondly is generating alacrity, thirdly is pulling enemies, and fourth is crowd control, okay? So Chronomancer is a fun class. It offers a lot of playmaking potential, and it rewards a lot of players who are constantly looking for opportunities for their squad. I think most people are running Arc DPS here, but for those who aren't running Arc DPS, or for those who watch the video later and don't have Arc DPS installed, it's recommended that you install it because lots of what you do as a chrono is hidden in terms of like stats, and you can't really appreciate what you're doing for the squad or what other chronomasters are doing for the squad. Main thing to look out for is basically your strip meters. It tells you sort of how many boon strips you're doing to the enemy squad. Okay. Alright, so
Alright.
let's start with gear first, okay? In the squad message is the build, I believe. That's the Chronomancer, the trait lines and the skills. For gearing, you just run full minstrel armor, weapons, and trinkets. The reason why is want to make sure we are as beefy as possible, and with minstrel stats, it allows you to play more aggressively and not get bursted. As a caveat, there are some chrono builds that run celestial stats instead, which gives a little bit more damage for a slight drop in tankiness, but there's not really any difference. We're going to focus on minstrel, but just be aware those who are in CO, so Augustin and Almond, if you are going to play Chronomancer for CO, you need to make sure you're on celestial stats instead. But everything else in Bana, we're going to run minstrel stats. Okay, so for armor, we run the Rune of Durability. It just gives us more toughness, health, and boon durations. And for weapon, we run Sword Focus, Sword Shield, and Sigil of Energy on the swords to give us an extra dodge roll every time we weapon swap. And you run Sigil of Exhaustion on the offhands for more boon strips. Okay, now for trait line, we run Domination 3-1-1, Inspiration 1-3-2, and Chronomancer 131, and I'm going to go through the key traits on what you have to pay attention to and what you want to try to play around. Okay, so we'll go through domination first. Okay, so I'll let you open your hero tabs. You can sort of see as well. So the main key skills in domination that you need to focus on is shatter concentration. What this does is that every time you use one of your shatters, you remove a boon on hit. Now this basically defines Mesmers, because a lot of your boon strips are going to come from your shatters, your no field, your CCs, and without this, your boon strips are going to be so much worse. Fisher's Expression is the other key skill. Every time you CC an enemy, you remove 2 extra boons on top of that. So any crowd control you do as a Chronomancer will therefore enhance your boon strips as well. So that's what we're trying to focus on. The other skills in Inspiration, we only picked them because they're the worst. They're the best out of all 3 of them, but they're not really that impactful in terms of the build. Um, okay, so let's talk about inspiration trait line next to the middle one. Okay, so the key skills in inspiration is Shatter Storm, and what this does is it gives you an extra shatter for your F1, which means that you have 2 charges, so an extra 5 boons rip each time. So Hungry has a question: how does boon strip compare to Necro? Good question. So Necro boon strips, you sort of get them more in terms of a push or a spike. So when you're dropping your wells or you're dropping your shades and you're dropping your breach, yeah. Um, that gives a lot of damage. While for Mesmers you're stripping, but most of the time your strips you also CCing during that. So think about it as Necro you're stripping and damaging, and Chrono you're stripping and CCing. Okay. The other key skill in the in the loot, sorry, not inspiration, the loot line, is Master Fragmentation. What this does is enhances your shatter skills. So this is really important, probably the most important trait for Chronomancer. Several reasons for this. What it does is it improves your F3 shatter skill time sync, so that it hits 5 people instead of one. And because it hits 5 people, that means your base strip, you're gonna strip one extra boons from each of them. But another important thing is that time sync also dazes people, and use it and from the earlier trait Fisher's expression. Every time you see someone, you remove an extra 2 boon strips. So out of your F1 or F3 time sync gives you the most boon strip. So you want to sort of make sure you're using it at the most important moments. And the other important part about Master Fragmentation is the continent split buff. What it does is it gives you an extra second on your continent split, which means that you get an extra second to sort of land all your combos before your continent split puts you back. Okay, finally we'll talk about the Chronomancer trait line. Not anything too exciting here. The only two that you need to worry about is improved alacrity and stretch time. What stretch time does is every time you put your wells down, so wells of eternity and gravity well, if you end up standing in it, you'll get some alacrity. It also gives your shield 5 and more alacrity, so it's just a good usage of trying to generate boons for your squad. Does anyone have any questions so far before we continue? Yeah, go ahead, Hungry.
I'll just talk. Um, so this might be a bit of a dumb question, but uh, when you say boon strip and you count the number of boons that you're stripping, um, does that talk about stacks or not? So is that stacks relevant when it comes to stability, but everything else is counted as, so if you have 7 stacks of burning, sorry, 7 stacks of might, that counts as one thing that you strip?
I believe so. Pote can correct me on that or not, but I'm pretty sure you just take off the entire thing.
And stab gets stripped first, right?
Uh, Sometimes I think there's a specific order. I don't actually know what the order is. Someone else who's more experienced will probably be able to tell
Okay.
me.
And do you know if
I just think
super
about it
speed?
as in wherever you're stripping is going to be impactful regardless. Ties of Time is Shield 5 Almond, so it's this one,
Time to do some real
the Shield
damage.
Do
4.
you know if super speed will get stripped?
So I believe like it strips in an order. I don't know what the order is, but um, at the end of the day, in a fight, wherever you're stripping
Yeah,
is going to be
strips to good.
impactful. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Uh, let's talk about weapon skills now, then I guess. So we'll talk about the shield skill first, and then we'll talk about the sword skill, and then we'll talk about the skills. So shield skills, you got shield 4 and shield 5. Shield 4 is Echoes of Memory. What this does is it gives you about a 1.5 second immunity to damage. So you want to try to use this during a melee clash to prevent damage to yourself. If you use it and you get attacked, you can reactivate Shield 4 Deja Vu to provide another 1.5 second immunity to damage. So, for example, if I stand next to Pote and Pote hits me, Pote hit me, just keep hitting me. So I use Shield 4, keep hitting me, and then because I'm tapped, I can block again with Deja Vu for another 1.5 second duration. Okay. Um, this is used if you don't get the reactivation of Deja Vu, it's not a big deal. but you want to try to use this when you know there's going to be a lot of damage coming in. So an example of where it might be useful is, say, like we're standing behind the wall at the gate, and we're going to come out and bomb our feet. And since you know that you're going to walk into the enemy, so you can pop it as before you go in to avoid the damage there. So that's one application. But just use it when you think lots of damage are coming in. The other skill that you need for shield is shield 5 times of time is the other key weapon skills. What this does is form a slow moving projectile that returns after a certain distance, and as you can see when you throw out it comes back to you. Now, the thing to know is that if you collect the shield, so you run back into the shield, it decreases the cooldown by 10 seconds. So you want to try to hit it every single time. Now, what you may not notice is that if you throw down your shield 5 and you move to a different place, the shield will follow back to you. So, example, if I throw it up front and then I'm going to move to the right, what happens is that the shield will come back to me this way, so you don't have to worry about like going back to where you were standing to collect the shield. So that's just something nice to notice. Another thing you can do, I'm just gonna wait to get my shield 5 cooldown. If you are pushing, if you're fast enough, you can actually throw your shield 5, walk forward and keep walking. And if you do it quick enough, I wasn't quick enough, but it will actually go the other way as well. Just let me get out of combat first because I'm a little bit slow. It's not, that's fine. Okay. So, for example, if you throw your shield 5 out and you walk fast enough, what happens is that you can actually turn the other way to continue the duration. So you can get like a longer shield 5 stun if you do it right. Most of the time, you may not have enough speed during combat. If you have super speed, you might be able to make it. So it's just something just to bear in mind. Why shield 5 is useful, it stuns enemy that it passes through, and for any allies it hits. That's fine, Bolton. See ya. And for any allies that it passes through, they also grant swiftness, might, and alacrity. So you want to try to use this skill for crowd control, just because it will help lock down a group of enemies for a melee bomb. And it will strip boons thanks to Sigil of Durability, which removes boons on CC, as well as the Fisher's Expression trait line. Okay. Next we'll talk about sword skills. Sword 1 is just a free chain auto attack, and you just basically hold it in melee, and the first strike will strip. Let me just invite Might first. So if all your cooldowns, if everything is on cooldown, then you just spam 1 just to get a bit more boon strips. Sword 2 is Blurred Frenzy, and what it does is it grants you about a second of duration. So again, you're going to use it in the same way as you use Shield 4. If you're using Shield 4 and you're out and you're in the middle of an ally, you can just flood it. You can just use your Flood Frenzy to avoid more damage. And as a Mesmer, you're going to be, with your group in the enemy block most of the time. So any ways of avoiding damage is useful. Okay, the final sword skill is Illusionary Leap. And what it does is it sends out a nearby enemy, and on reactivation you can just use it to gap close. So if Flower stands there, what happens is that you can use your free and now send out a clone, and then if you reactivate it, you'll teleport to it. Now what you can do, if I just quickly try to get my skill back, you can actually, for example, if you stand there, you stand at the marker.
Oh, that's not me. That's an illusion.
Oh, the clone. Yeah, it's a standing marker, Sam. Or someone stand the marker. Porte can. Okay. What you can do, you send out your illusion. You can also buffer your tides of time, and then you can teleport in to get your tides of time to go at the same time as when you leap in. So that's something you can bear in mind as well. But that's more of a advanced technique. Lastly, we'll talk about focus skills. Focus 5 is Phantasm Warden. I think it's kind of useless. I don't worry about this. The damage it does isn't impactful enough. It gets vulnerability, but like, I think it's just better to spam 1 just to get your boon strips up instead. the other key skill I'll say, so you got two key weapon skills. One is Tides of Time, Shield 5. The second one is your Focus 4 pole Temporal Curtains. So what Temporal Curtain does is basically a 1500 range AoE pole that pulls a group of enemies to it. So you lay it down at a 900 range and then it pulls within a 600 range duration radius. It's one of the key skills, and experienced Chronomancers are constantly looking for opportunity to make the most use out of it. You can pull on walls, you can pull in front of people, and what you can also do if you're in a melee clash, you can also pull on your feet. So let's say like you're in an enemy blob, you can just throw down your temporal curtains where you are and then just pull people close to your group. So that's a application there. Okay. So Tuna's saying I have no field mimic roles. So I'll talk about utility skill after Tuna because I want to move on to that after we finish with weapon skills. Okay. Can I get 2 volunteers? That's not on to mount up, please. With a bunny or whatever. Can I just get 2 people down the top of the wall, please? Bye, boss. Can I get 1 more person who's not in combat to get on the wall? Thank you. Okay, that's fine. We got 3 anyway. Can I have one of you stand at the edge of the wall, another person stand on the other edge of the wall, please? Okay. So I'll sort of show one use of your focus 4 pull, which is when you're pulling people off the wall. Now, in the game, how the game determines whether you pull someone off the wall is based on the velocity the character is traveling. Now, there's a minimum velocity threshold that you need to pull enemy off, and that velocity is calculated based on the distance you are to the center of the pole. So if you are, for example, close to the pole, you're not going to be traveling very fast, while people further away are going to be traveling faster. And we can use this to sort of gauge where we want to put the pole to pull people off the wall. So over here I got Almond standing at the set like closest to us, and then Flowers is standing behind them. Okay, so look what happens if I put my pole right on where Almond is. Okay, so if I put it where Almond is, if you watch, that didn't work. Let me just make another one. Give me a second. Just stand where you were again. I'm just getting my cooldowns back. Actually, do you have any other chronos here? Sen, can you put your pole sort of midway on the wall? Actually, no, I got it. Let's try this again. So I put it midway through. What it should do is should put Flowers down, who was further away, but it didn't pull Almond down. So the reason why is because Almond was, even though he was closer to the edge of the wall where we were pulling, and the reason why Almond didn't fall down is because the pole was right next to him, so the velocity that he was traveling was much slower than Flowers, who was standing further away. So when you want to pull people off the wall, you sort of want to gauge it so where you can pull at a further distance. So if I wanted to say instead pull Almond off, rather than putting my wall at the base where it's not going to make him travel fast enough, we need to put it further towards him. So somewhere here, and what should happen now is that Almond should fall off. So that's just something to recognize, okay? So yeah, so that's how wall pulls is. Now, when we do wall pulls, of course, you don't actually have to, your objective doesn't always have to be to pull them entirely off the wall. Obviously, another thing you can do is you can just pull on the wall and then call for a range spike afterwards. So some people just pull and then you get your range damage to DPS them down. Okay? Alright. Before I move on to utility skills, does anyone else have any questions? No? Okay, we'll keep going then. Okay, so utility skills, as a Chronomancer, you want to make sure that you healing well, no field, and gravity well these 3 skills are always on your bar. There's not really any reason not to have them on your bar. The other 2 slots I think is interchangeable based on the situation. I'm just trying to get out of combat so I can change my skills. Most people run Mimic and Illusion of Life. However, you can also, depending on the situation, you can swap them out for Portal. You can also swap them out for Fail. You can also swap them out for Wells or Senility. What was the other one? The other one was... oh yeah, of course. The other one is Blink. So yeah, so you can... we always want... oh yeah, sorry, Mimic as well. Yeah, you can swap for Mimic as well as Blink. So, let's see. Let's see where I am at too. So your well of turn to your healing ability gives you a moderate heal, but more importantly, gives you a AOE. It gives you your alacrity. What you can do, you don't have to stand it for the entire duration. As long as you are in for the first pulse, you get your alacrity. So you can put it down and then move out of it to get your alacrity. Each pulse also removes a condition as well, so it does a little bit of Conti cleanses. So try to drop it in the middle of a fight, even if you're not standing into it. As long as you drop it on top of your commander, then you and your tail will get some cleanses off as well. Okay, the second one we're going to look at is no field. What we want to make sure we try to do is try to use no field to its fullest. What it does is it pops it down, and then enemies on there, up to 5 of them will lose a boon every single time. Hungry says, so do all 3 pulses apply even if you're not in it? No. So what a heal does is it gives you what it pulses, I believe, is the cleanses. The alacrity is just the first pulse, so you don't need to be in all 3 pulses to get alacrity. However, if you want to Conti cleanse, then you need to be in all 3 pulses. So yeah. So no field. What it does is it pulses 5 times and it strip boons. You want to try to drop it on top of the enemy when you're spiking or when you're using gravity well, and on top of enemies. Next one, Gravity Well. This is the bread and butter of Chronomancer. It's your elite skill. Use it, and you basically CC the enemy for about good 2-3 seconds. And you also know, once the well expires, you notice that if they're still in it, they get pulled into the middle. So you want to try to always make sure your Gravity Well is recast with your continent split. Just to make the most use out of it. Mimic is the next skill. You can use it in conjunction with no field to improve your boon strip. So Mimic does have a cast time. I think it's like 1 second or so. So what you want to do is, if you know you're going to be casting your no field, because most of the time you want to mimic no field, it's very rare that you want to mimic Illusion of Life. So we assume that everyone's going to mimic no field. If you know you're about to clash, use your Mimic early. You have 10 seconds after you cast it to cast no field afterwards. So that way, once you cast it, you're getting instant refresh on no field. So try to make sure you cast it first. Don't cast it later on and then realize that you need to cast no field and you can't because Mimic is casting. Illusion of Life is your rest. It does have a fairly long cast time, 1.25 seconds. What would be as Chronomancers, what you want to make sure is you look at your squad party, and if you see anyone getting low, you want to pre-cast it. You don't want to like wait for them to down and then cast it, because the chances are is that they are going to die before you can rest them. So, for example, if I see people are getting spiked and I see them getting low, I know I don't do any damage. But you want to pop Illusion of Life just before they go down, so the moment they go down, you bring them up. Probably give it like, probably what I would suggest is, if you're looking at it and you see them about 20%, that's probably when you want to cast Illusion of Life. If you cast it and, you know, they didn't die, they get out, fine, you know. But it's just to prepare for the worst case scenario, in my opinion. Okay. Next skill we're going to talk about is Fail. Most of the time you do not need to use Fail because usually the commanders are running Fail. But if you're running with a commander and they're not running Chronomancer, then if you're the only Chronomancer in the squad, they may ask you to swap to Fail. And it's very simple. They will just say, for example, if I'm Greg and I'm running Firebrand, I'll just say drop Fail on the right 3, and then you just drop it there, and then you just walk past and something simple like that. Okay. Uh, Portal, it's very situational. Not really any set criteria on when to use it. You just sort of anticipate when it may come in handy. And then finally, the other skill was the Wealth of Similarity. And let me just get out of combat so I can cast it. Okay. What this does is that it gives you an extra source of boon strip. But the boon strip only works if they're still in it. So you want to try to combo it with your pole or your gravity well to make sure you get the full duration. At the end, so it removes 2 boon strips from those inside. It also dazes, which means that it removes more boon strips from your Fisher's Expressions as well as your Sigil of Absorption. So it's another option if you don't want to run Mimic, you can run Wells instead to have 2 sources of spoon strips, or you can place what Illusion of Life with Wells. It's up to you. Okay. Finally, Blink. It's my special. You don't want to use this unless you're confident, so I'm not going to go through it. But just be aware that it does exist. Does anyone have any questions before we continue? Yes. Mimic Wells of Similarity, no field. Which one to mimic? Mimic no field. Reason why is because Wells does boon strip, but it's more difficult to strip the boons because you need them to be in it at the end. While no field will strip boons from every single pulse, and it pulses 5 times. So that's why I would mimic no field instead, just because it's easy to do boon strips. Do you have any other questions before we continue? No? Okay. We'll talk about the profession mechanic. Sorry, Hungry has a question. How many chronos and do you coordinate? No, you just do it on your. You just do it when you feel like you're gonna make use of strips. So I mean, it depends. It depends. I know CO runs 4 chronos. We run 2, 3, 2, 3. It depends on how big your squad size is. It depends on what your squad is running as well. But I think, you know, we probably want like 3 or so chronos with a big squad. You don't call it no fields with them. All you do, you just throw it out when you think there's a spike coming in, or when you're clashing melee. Because chances are, if you're clashing melee, they're gonna have a lot of boons anyway. One chrono ain't gonna strip all of them by himself, so you can overlap them a little bit. Any other questions? Yeah, Pote says yeah, we want to run a bit more than 2 or 3 chronos. We run 25 if possible. Not yet. I'm going to go through that now, Tuna. So I'm going to go through the profession mechanics. That's your F1, F2, F3, F4, and F5 skills. So F1 split second and F2 rewinder are just melee shatters. They are short range, and you want to try to pop them as you go into a melee clash. And every time you pop them, you move 1 boon from each enemy round, and you can hit 5 enemies. So when you're in melee, just spam them out. Out of the 3, F1, F2, F3, F3 time sync is the better one because you strip more boons. It's also no longer cooldown, so you want to try to get the most. So you want to try to depends. If you're in the middle of an enemy, then pop time sync first. If you're sort of say just hitting like just skirting around them, just use your F1, F2 first. F2 does do a little bit of confusion cripple. It doesn't really matter. You just want it for the boon strips. Your F4 distortion. This is a very weak info. It's not as strong as your Shield 4 Echo Memories or your Sword 2 Blood Frenzy, but if you're running out of info, you can just pop it very quickly to get about, I think it's half a second of immunity to damage. So just something to bear in mind. The final one, obviously, is your F5 Continent Split. It's a unique mechanic which allows you to refund any skills or ability that was cast during its duration. So this includes all your utility skills, your elite skills, your weapon skills, and your shatter skills. It also returns you to your original position and it resets your health. There are quite a lot of different combos you can use with Continent Split, so I'm just going to go through a couple now. These are like the most common ones. So the way Continent Split works, or rather the way Shatters work, is that they don't have a cast time. So for example, you can be in the middle of casting and also use a Shatter without interrupting it, okay? Now, this is key because we're going to use that fact to try to cheat out as much time you can with Continent Split. So, the first combo I'm showing is how do you reset your Gravity Well and your No Field together using Continent Split. So, if you hop over Gravity Well, you can see it as a 1 second cast time, right? As long as you cast Continent Split before the cast of Gravity Well finishes, then the ability will be refunded after you come back. So what you don't want to do is press your Continent Split and then cast your Gravity Well because you won't have enough time to cast your No Field. Instead, if you use your, for example, if you use your 2, your sword skill, you can see that it has a bar, right? You want to try to cast Continent Split about around half to 3/4 where the bar fills to get your duration of your Continent Split. So I believe the combo is you Gravity Well and then Continent Split midway, and then use your No Field, and you should have both back. So Gravity Well, Continent Split, No Field here, and then you should have both back. Gravity Well, No Field.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, because what some people do, they cast Continent Split and then cast Graft Well. Try to cast it midway, and you have time to cast both. Also remember that your shatters also refund after Continent Split, so you can Continent Split, so you can Gravity Well, Continent Split, No Field, and then pop all your shatters, and you'll have all your shatters back as well. So this is useful for like a melee bomb. It does take a little bit of practice, but that's one of the skills that you want to make sure you master if you're going to play Chronomancer, because having double No Field and double Gravity Well would just improve your strips dramatically. Okay. The next one I want to show is one that involves your weapon skill as well, weapon 5 Tides of Time. So what you can do is the same concept as when you're casting your Gravity Well, because Tides of Time also have a cast time, it's basically 3/4 of a second. You want to use your Tides of Time and then immediately Continent Split, and then you can throw your Gravity Well and pop all your shatters after that. So if I say again, so it's Tides of Time, Continent Split, Gravity Well, shatters. Focus on shatter 4 first, because this is mostly being a melee clash, and you don't want to get popped while you're in the middle of your combo, and then you can just pop F3 time sync and then F1 split second. If you have time, you can plot F2 rewinder, but I think you won't have time. So watching, so combo is, and then you can spam all your shatters and you get all of them back. Okay. And that's the main 2 combos that you want to use. The first combo is good for range spike, where you can just reset, you can just overlap your Gravity Well No Field. The second combo is more useful in melee clash if you're trying to just try to push them back or anything. Right, does anyone have any questions regards to combos and stuff? No? Okay. Oh, one question. Yes, Bear? F5 as oh content split while wishing. Do you mean that one? Um, it depends. I mean, if you're so um if you're spiking, like for example, if we're range spiking, say we're like Pote is here and we're range spiking here, if obviously if we use our Gravity Well content split no field and people started pushing, of course we will be slightly behind them. But that's fine because Chronomancer moves faster than any other classes because um, time marches on. Not that one. There's another one. Where is it? They also say skill that lets you move faster. Anyway, the base speed of Chronomancer. I can't seem to find it. Oh, there it is. Yeah, your move speed increases. I don't know. Um, it depends. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I get away with it because I have blink. Not everyone has blink. I know that. Um, you can also, by the way, you can also early end your continent split. So, example, let's say like what Porter was saying is that you know, if we're using if you're using your continent split and then they're pushing, you can pop your continent split. Oh shit, they're going. Okay, you can reactivate it. You can move faster. So you don't actually wait. You don't have to wait the entire duration of continent split. If you recast it, obviously it will be a short duration, but if you want to stay with your squad, you can do that as well. Does that answer your question, sort of? Yeah. It's a difficult one. It depends on the situation. Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
Yeah. What food do you use when you're not using these
Mint
to move?
garnish. So mint garnish for minstrel, and then the peppermint oil as well. If you're gonna run the Selly build with CO, then you need oysters and then this maintenance oil for the other stuff. But for
What
us
do
in
you
Bana, we're gonna run peppermint oil.
What do you think of the bowl of poultry saute?
Never tried it to be fair. I mean, I never really been
Oh,
focused on food. There've been days where I'll go for the entire run without food or banners or oils, but you know,
oh, okay.
obviously, if I can, you should, but yeah. All right. If no one has any number of clones doesn't affect strips for the they sort of do. For example, you can use I mean the only way you're gonna really generate clones is with your leap. Um, so what you can do is you can pop your free and then do your shatter your F3 times it to get
Vulnerable.
a double radius of your shatters. But the problem with that is that it get rid of clone and therefore you can't jump onto them, and that's mostly what you want to use your free for, is you want to just jump on them instead. So it depends. But yeah, you don't really generate that much clones with your skills. Alright. Does anyone have any other question? Okay, then for the last 5 minutes I got some gameplay footage that I can sort of explain sort of like what you are looking
You'll have to
through
hit
and
punch
everything. Let me
harder.
just put it up more on screen. Give me a second. Oh shit, I can't stream it. Ah, that's why I couldn't fucking stream it. I disconnected by accident. God damn it. Okay. Uh, let me find which one it is. Uh, um, if you have a look on Discord, I am sharing. sort of the video now. I'll give a bit of time for people to get in. How many do you have in Discord? Alright, so in the first clip, we're pushing against Indo, okay? Now here,
Pulling in front.
so Pote asks for a pulse. So as a Chronomancer, you start on focus. You won't usually start on shield. When he asks for a pull, you just stack your pulls on. The reason why is because most of the time when you do your first pull, it's gonna get blocked by Aegis or it's gonna get blocked by stability and all that. So you want to try to stack your pulls or organize your pulls so you can pull more than one person.
Left one.
Okay, so now that you've done your focus pull, there's no more reason to stay on focus on sword focus because focus 5 isn't very useful. So you will sort of get in habit of as soon as you use your focus 4, swap to shield. As soon as you use your shield 5 and your shield 4, swap back to focus, and then you focus 4, swap back to shield, then so on. You don't want to stay on focus if you've done your focus 4 already. You don't want to stay on shield unless if you've done your 2 shield skills. The only time you will is say you're waiting for cooldown. Okay, so right now we see that our focus, we didn't really get many pulls and we're getting pushed now. Okay, which is why we swap to shield. Now we need to make a decision on what combo we're going to use. Whether we're going to just do a no field or we're going to do our gravity well no field combo. So I'm keeping those two in mind during the fight.
Left once. Come left. Come here. Press your feet.
Okay, so I can see they put the bubble down. Okay, now since I can see that also that they're not pushing. So this is when I opt for your gravity well content split no field position.
Keep going left.
Okay, so I'm just putting it down. You can see that I ended it early because I don't want to stay in that spot because I'm underneath a bubble. So I did a quick content split no field and then resetted it. And now you can see that even though I used the content split combo, I'm still right on Pote without using my blink or anything. So you can still do this combo and be on the tag.
Tighter. Good job.
Okay, now I opt for my second gravity well as well as my Tides of Time because we're in a melee clash. And you will also see that in a minute when I push through them, I'm going to use my shatter skills.
Okay, sustain this. Good job. Pushing forward in 3, 2, 1. Push forward. Push together. On me.
So no field and then the shatter skills.
Come
okay.
left. He's over here.
Also use my illusionary leap because I can see that we got the numbers now. So there's no reason to play too defensively. So right now I want to try to focus on getting as much CC and as much shatters as possible. You can see that when I use my shield, I swap back to focus and you can see that focus 4 is coming up. So I know that once it comes up, I'm just going to stay on tag and I'm just going to pull on the tag to try to get as many people on top of us to spike down.
I don't know where he is, but he's dead. Maybe. Kinda. No, he's not dead. Is he dead? Where is he?
Okay. And that's sort of how you want to play a fight where you're mostly in melee and you're trying to push through. Okay. What's the next one?
Come left. He's there now. Stack here. Back. Push in 3.
I don't want to go through any blinks stuff because I want to wait for another time if we need to. Where is it? Okay, so this is a good example of when you will sort of want to like focus on thinking about the macro play. So in this play, we know that red is in our camp. We also know that we just waypointed to keep. I waypointed slightly earlier because I didn't wait for nodes. And I know that the red group is a group that doesn't want to fight and will just want, okay? So here, what I've done, okay? I'm checking the map, I'm checking which position Pote is coming towards the camp. Now, I'm thinking to myself, either Pote is going to go left through Aldens, or he's going to go right through Wild Creek. So I'm bearing in mind seeing where he positions so I can sort of jitter to either the left hand side or the right hand side. So I can see go to the right now, so I know for sure that Pote is coming here. I'm double checking the map, okay? So Then, therefore, since I know that Porter is going to come here, and I know that the enemy is going to run as soon as we can quickly swap our one of our utility skill to Portal, okay? So the idea now is that since we know that Portal is coming here, we can drop our Portal once to get them in combat and then drop the portals for the rest of our squad. So I'm just looking, I'm just calculating, seeing where Porter is and how long it's going to be, and then I start running.
Great, now
So
I
I
got
can
the
see
chem.
that now this is a good enough distance. Once I got them in combat, Porter comes down, and then we can spike them.
Let's go. Let's go. I believe.
Okay, and then we just get a free
I
fight
believe
there.
that they will die.
So just use your common sense. Use your just think about sort of what's best to use at what time. There's not really a time of okay, we only have used this, or you only have used that, and so on. Okay. Does anyone have any other questions? No. Anyone questions?
Replenishing.